So the new Hunger Games book came out last Tuesday. I told myself I was not going to binge read it. And then 3 days later, I had finished it. In hindsight, 3 days isn't like that short of a time to finish it, or at least like that's what I thought. And then I saw people online saying that they had finished it like in a night. So I mean, okay. Before we begin, I would just like to reiterate that this is not a spoiler-free video. If you have not read the book, please shut your laptop, turn your phone, just whatever, and go read it right now. It's a little bit hard to form a comprehensive review since I just recently finished it and absorbed so much information. The main thing though is that yes, I liked it. I thought that it was very compelling. I think that it added a lot to the series. And as much as I kind of went on a rant in an earlier video about Suzanne Collins just making this for a money grab, I don't think that's what this book is. I do think it adds a lot to this series, and I don't think that she just did it for more money. Okay, so my initial thoughts. I have to be totally honest, in opening this book, I didn't really have a lot of expectations. Of course, I was excited for the novel. I was really excited, but I wasn't really setting my hopes high, you know? And I definitely did not expect to receive just as many cameos as we did in this book. And I have to say, reading Plutarch's name, literally screaming with joy. I am a day one Plutarch fan. If you saw my previous video that I posted a week or two before the book came out, which is very ironic timing. I love Plutarch, and my sister made this meme for me, which I feel definitely is relevant. It's honestly surreal to me just how much this book feels like the Hunger Games. The Battle of the Star Marks of Snakes, to me at least, kind of felt like a different kind of story altogether, being that Coriolanus was never a tribute in the games, minus that one time that he went to the games for 10 minutes. So this is the first book we've gotten since Catching Fire in 2009, really, where the main character is a tribute and ultimately a victor in the Hunger Games. And I really never thought we were going to get another one of these stories, so it's just, it's surreal to me at least. But of course, since I am a hater to my core, I can't really walk away from saying this book is perfect, although in my standards probably closer to perfect than I ever thought it was going to be. My main critique on this book has to do with just how many cameos there were to previous characters. Most of them I can explain. Plutarch's presence is understandable. It makes sense. It clears up some confusion about why was Haymitch so quick to join the rebellion after catching fire. Giving Plutarch and Haymitch a little bit of a history really helps clear up that confusion and make it way more understandable. However, in the 74th and the 75th Hunger Games, there weren't really crews for filming, not that we know of. Of course, it could have been, but it's never really mentioned in the previous books, so it kind of feels a little bit inconsistent, but I'll let it slide. And of course, Haymitch needs mentors. There's a pretty good chance it would be Victor that we knew. Mags makes perfect sense because Haymitch actually does mention that Mags is a very nice lady, so it makes sense that they have a little bit of a history. And okay, I guess I'll get 2 victors instead of 1, even though Katniss and Pete only got 1 in both their games and they were fine. And I guess Wyrus can be the other mentor, even though it feels a little bit unlikely that it would both be mentors that we've previously seen in other books, but you know what? Okay, I'll let that one slide too. Beetie's child being in Haymitch's games, again, it's not entirely unlikely. Katniss does mention in a book that Victor's children are often put in the games because of rigged reapings. So, you know what? I can see this happening. So it's not entirely unlikely again. And the main thing I have an issue with, and please don't get mad at me at this, you Effie fans, but Effie's presence just seems so unlikely to me. You're just saying that her sister just so happened to be chosen for the prep team for this year's Hunger Games. She just so happened to be chosen for District 12. The timing just so happened to be the timing of Haymitch being in the games, and it just so happened that Effie had to be pulled into it too. And it's not that Effie wasn't going to be involved in the games at any point in her life, it just seems so unlikely that this is the time that she's introduced to all of it. Effie is the one I have the main issue with, but again, I can't really be that mad about it because it is what the fans want, and I would be lying if I didn't tell you that these cameos weren't leaving me screaming as I was reading the book. Still, their presence did take me somewhat out of the world sometimes, just because of how unlikely all these things seemed. But again, all of them aren't entirely unlikely, so it's really not that much of a critique. I think it's just personal preference for me. So that's my main critique. My other one would be that it seems to me it's somewhat obvious that this book was written before the other books were written. Not that there's anything really wrong with that, it's just, I think, a little pet peeve of mine. And even if it's true, even if she came up with everything in this book after she wrote the original trilogy, I think she did really well writing this and making it make sense logically with the other series and tying it all together. I feel like she did that really well. So it's time, that's only like a half critique, honestly. My final critique has to do with one of Haymitch's conversations with Snow. You know the one I'm talking about. The one where President Snow trauma dumps on Haymitch. It's the one where President Snow tells Haymitch all about his ties with District 12. And it's not that this is particularly bad, it just seems inconsistent, because I don't really understand why Coriolanus would tell Haymitch this. He never once mentioned it to Katniss. And I feel like that kind of goes back to my point where this book was probably written and created after the original trilogy, which I can't really prove that. It's just something I kind of suspect. Because it just seems weird that Snow would be so open about these things with Haymitch and then not say any of it to Katniss. And I also kind of have a problem with Haymitch seeing the footage of Lucy Gray and figuring out, like, Coriolanus' connection with her. I feel like Suzanne Collins definitely just put this in there because she wanted them to know about it, which I can't be all too mad about. I was hoping that someday Katniss would find out about Coriolanus' ties with District 12, and now she probably does. But my problem is it's kind of seems like a far stretch for Haymitch to make that connection between Lucy Gray and Snow from seeing that footage that he sees, but you know what? Yeah, maybe he figured it out. The main thing I have an issue with is, like, why would Snow show him this? Maybe I'm missing something in the scene. I mean, I understand that he could be showing this to Haymitch to be, like, warning him, Lord Dove, you gotta be careful what you're gonna do because then I'm gonna treat her like I did this girl, as you can obviously see in this footage, which is fair, but I still don't see how and why Snow would reveal himself like that because he's giving Haymitch a lot of information that could be later used against him. I just don't really understand Snow's motivation in showing that particular footage to Haymitch. If I'm missing something, let me know because it just seems a little strange to me. Nah, I don't know. Of course, I have a lot of love for this book. My love for it far outnumbers any critiques I have, so I just want to remind people of that. I really enjoyed the message behind this book, and I definitely understand now why Suzanne Collins chose to write about Haymitch's story. Let me scroll to it. Flip to it. Let me flip the pages to find it. In the back of the book, where it shows Suzanne Collins' interview with David Levithan, he asks why she decided to write about Haymitch's story, and she says, "When I landed on implicit submission and its dependency on propaganda, Haymitch's was the natural tale to tell." So I really understand why she went with Haymitch's story rather than someone else's. What we did know of Haymitch's story is only what Katniss and Peeta watched on Capitol Television. And now I'm wondering why I never questioned the accuracy of those tapes. And I think that's what Suzanne Collins is trying to tell us to do, is to question things more and not just take everything at their word, which definitely you can tell how she used this book to explain her point. One of my favorite things about this book is how it really showed that Katniss was not a chosen one. She was not the starter of some grand revolution. This rebellion had been in the working for over 25 years. She is not some special girl that created all of this on her own power. She just sent the spark that finally caught fire. I hope after reading that, people can finally understand that she's not a chosen one. You know, it's someone like Katniss being the quote-unquote leader of a rebellion is not entirely unrealistic. She was, like Haymitch, just luckier. I really love how the book expounded upon Haymitch's character. Honestly, finishing this book made me want to go back and read the original trilogy because we just know so much more now. Before, you could write him off as like just some drunkard. And of course, we knew there was more to him than that. But now we know there's more to him than that. Now we know the details of the story. I'm also really happy about all the lore that Suzanne Collins got to dump in this novel. Like the fact that she confirmed Katniss is Covey. We were all saying it. We were all saying that Katniss must be Covey. But just having it like confirmed is just like, oh, it's so satisfying. You know her parents' name now for once. And the fact that Haymitch was friends with Burdock, kills me. It paints his relationship with Katniss in like a totally different light. I just love all the new information that we got from this book that we did not previously have. Anything Hunger Games related from Suzanne Collins, I'll take. I also feel that I have to mention the other characters in the book, besides the characters that we already previously knew from other books. One thing that Suzanne Collins always does phenomenally is writing characters, and each character is interesting and complex and compelling. Lulu specifically fascinates me. The fact that we leave the story without knowing a single thing about who she really was is heartbreaking, and finally, I have to bring up the epilogue. Before I finish this book, I did hear some people talking about the epilogue. I was like, okay, you know what, yeah, it's gonna be sad. But I wasn't expecting the epilogue to take place after Mockingjay. This epilogue was extremely emotional to read, and I feel that it was the perfect ending to this book. Suzanne Collins subjected her readers to all these traumatic events and gave us a little bit of a band-aid over it to make up for it. Of course, the wound was a bullet hole and the covering was a band-aid, but Suzanne Collins is an extremely talented writer, and although I did not ever expect to get another Hunger Games book, I thoroughly enjoyed this one, and you can count on me to be reading it again and rereading again and rereading it. This was a pretty short interview because I'm honestly still recovering from everything that this book was, and I'm still kind of like processing it. Maybe when I give it some time to like marinate, I'll like have a more comprehensive review. But for now, here are my initial thoughts. I do plan on rereading the whole thing in chronological order. I know everyone's like, no, don't read it that way. I'm only going to read it once that way. I want to see what it's like. So maybe I'll make another review once I've done that. In finishing this book, I do question again whether or not Suzanne Collins will eventually write another book. I think she definitely did leave some room open for her to continue the series. But if this is where it ends, you know, I'm fine with it. I can't put my finger on it, but something about this novel really makes it feel like the series is complete. Maybe it's the fact that the epilogue takes place after Mockingjay. It feels very complete to me. We have the beginning of the Hunger Games, the middle of the Hunger Games, and the end of the Hunger Games. I don't think anything will ever top this series to me, and I absolutely cannot wait for the series to be on the big screen. So, tell me what you thought about this book. Let me know if you feel the same thing about my critiques, or if you're mad at me for saying those things, or if you love Plutarch as much as I do, or if you think he's terrible. He doesn't get the love that I thought he would get from this book, so please tell me I'm not alone in this. But yeah, that's the end of the video. See you in the next one? Okay.